Aloha, everybody. Welcome back to Tiki Tuesday Talks post Labor Day. Excited to be back with you here. We got a really great session ahead. Let's introduce the crew. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Just introduce yourself and let us know where you're ringing in from.
Hey, oh, Alex, go ahead.
All right. This is Alex Day, and I'm coming to you from Portland, Maine.
Portland, Maine. My sister's going there soon.
It's a beautiful place. It's going to get cold real soon.
I'm Steve. I'm in Birmingham where it is not cold. So
it was 109 here in Vegas yesterday. So
nope.
Katie. Oh, you're muted.
I'm Katie Best. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and it is very moderate here. Nice 80.
Straight ahead moderate.
Yeah.
Aaron, you're in the car as usual.
Coming from the balmy Baltimore, Maryland, and it's about 87 here, so it's perfect.
Right on. Well, let's talk about what we're going to do today. So we are excited to have Alex Day, CEO at the company, author, doer of all things. We're going to talk about finding focus and creativity within limitations. So this is really going to be, in general, the way to think about programs, costing, ideation, et cetera. But then also, we can't ignore it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. So how does it relate with that? Some just housekeeping, chat box and questions. If you guys are on Crowdcast, you can ask your questions. You can do the same via Facebook Live. We'll get them. We'll try and interpret them and get them over to Alex. You can share the event in the top right. Tip jar, Venmo at Alexander-Paul-Day. If you want to support Alex in this time, it's much appreciated. Presentation, 30, 40 minutes. We're going to do a cocktail as usual. And then we've got 5 questions with Katie. So Alex, originally bartender in Death & Co.'s early days. I'm sure you're going to get into that. Became an owner in 2010. You've co-formed various businesses and partnerships with Dave Kaplan and Devin Tarby, including Proprietors LLC, and notable bars such as Nightcap, Honeycut, the Normandy Club, the Walker Inn, Death & Co. Denver, and Los Angeles. You've trained hundreds of bartenders, designed dozens of bars along the way, fallen in love with the process. So we're going to really get nerdy here. Focusing on operations, planning, logistics, process improvement, design, and systems. All the stuff I really, really love. Just kidding. But I'm glad that there are people that do. So without further ado, let's get you on here. Hello, sir.
Awesome. Hello, sir. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, we'll move on to this. Actually, let's swap to your deck. Boom. Look at that.
Awesome. Nice. Nicely done. Great. Well, thanks again for having me. This is, it's funny. Pete and I were talking on the phone a few weeks ago about, what to chat about today. And we just started kind of riffing on everything that we've been doing that kind of behind the scenes in the last many months for both of our businesses and how to maintain focus through something that's just so challenging. And I think that it seemed that pretty much snowballed into us putting this together, right, Pete? And kind of the genesis of the idea.
Absolutely. Just
yeah,
really kind of tapping into this stuff that you've done for so long, and then thinking about how it relates to now.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess, I'd start with giving just a little bit of background about where we were prior to March 15th, which was our day where we decided that we weren't comfortable operating any longer. I'm sure everyone has a little bit of PTSD or a lot of PTSD from that period, but that was the day that we decided, even though each of our cities hadn't quite made the call yet, that we weren't comfortable operating. And prior to that, we had a really fantastic run and build up of our company. We started Death & Co. in the East Village. almost 14 years ago now. And I wasn't originally a partner there, as Pete was saying at the top of this. I was a bartender. And I was working down the street at some places after college, and this bar opened. And I fell in love with it. Sat in front of Joaquin Simo, if anyone has had the pleasure of doing so. And he kind of rocked my world and showed me a side of cocktails that were so exciting. They weren't just, references to old recipes, but there was something kind of new and innovative and youthful about it. And I vowed to work there. Eventually was able to elbow my way into the Sunday night swing shift, which back in that day was just working solo, and real brutal shift. But Dave and I, my business partner now, Dave Kaplan and I, quickly found out we had kind of a shared vision for our future and what we wanted to do. And that was to, grow this wonderful idea, this nucleus that was an energy that existed at Death & Co. in those early times, which was full of just kind of like forward thinking evolution of pushing the craft of cocktails and the experience around that craft to new levels. And it was kind of like coming to work every day, recreating a playbook, which was super fun to be a part of. But following that, we started a consulting company and eventually did our first project without really having any idea what the hell we were doing, down in Philadelphia, called the Franklin Morgan.
The only way to do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fake it till you make it, I believe, ought to be written somewhere in stone in our company, at least a previous era of it.
For
but
sure.
It was crazy back then. But it was also, again, that same energy of pushing forward and kind of figuring it out as we went, in an industry that was, frankly, like, if we're all honest, back then, craft cocktail world was not necessarily mature. If somebody like myself was like 23 years old and was able to reach a level within it, goes to show you how much it had to grow, and really is an amazing reflection on where we're at in the industry today. So, after a while, Dave and I, we started this consulting company, and we had a vision to move to Los Angeles and open a bar. I went to Thailand for about 6 weeks moving, and the entire deal fell apart on my way out there. So basically landed without a project. And
what year is this?
This would be 2010, I think. Yep. That sounds about right. Yeah. So I previously had worked at Milk and Honey. As when I was young, I just 7 nights a week, I'd work anywhere. And they, would throw me some shifts here and there. And so I got to meet a guy named Eric Alperin, who owns the Varnish out there. And he gave me a gig right when I landed there. I got to work at the bar at the Varnish, and met Devin Tarby, if anyone doesn't know her. And really it was Devin coming on board to Proprietors, our consulting business, that really kind of catapulted and forced us to systemize and forced us to think kind of like introspectively about what we're doing and what we want to do. And that was definitely the beginning of us getting to do all these exciting projects, from, helping open restaurants in India, in Mumbai, in Russia, of doing stuff all over the US, from mom and pop consulting, somebody starting their first bar on through to big movie chains. And that then was starting to we were starting to feel pretty confident in that skill set. And then somebody approached us in Denver, and we were able to open Death & Co. Denver there in the Rambo Hotel, in collaboration with the hotel owner, a guy named Ryan Diggins, who we just really had a strong connection with. And right about that time, Dave, my business partner, he's very much a visionary kind of guy. He thinks big picture, long term, sees the opportunity where many of us don't. And he got us to focus on raising some money. And we were able to successfully and very publicly raise money on a platform called Seed Invest, to really set a foundation for our growth. And that got us to really put together and assemble a team on a national level to work with and kind of find opportunity for growth. And the first kind of tangible result of that was Death & Co. LA, which took about 2 years to build, and maybe 4 or 5 years after we signed the lease, and it opened just before this wonderful
Nailed it.
pandemic.
Nailed the timing.
Yeah, just great. I highly recommend spending a lot of money opening a bar and then not be able to operate it in order to, sustain it. That's just not that cool.
Yeah.
So,
tough. Right.
yeah, it was a little rough, but altogether, prior to March 15th, we saw this, we had the team together. We had 3 venues that were, even Death & Co. LA was starting to really kind of hit a stride, even those early months with anyone who's opened a bar knows it's really tough to find momentum in those early days. And then we, had this feeling that the world was kind of our oyster, and we were going to push for it and really, hit the ground running as much as we possibly could. And then, that day came and we had to make the call. And I'm sure a lot of other people felt it, but it was definitely crisis management. Shutting down the businesses, having to lay off at first the bulk of all hourly employees, and then shortly after most of the management team. But we were able to find a way to kind of, cinch down into a core group of people and be able to find focus. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is that moment from March 15th until today, and what we've done and what we've been able to do and how we've been able to find focus and really express creativity in a way that I never expected before. As somebody who came from a creative background and certainly within cocktails was able to express that in really fun ways throughout my career. This was a whole new type of creativity that I don't know if I was prepared for, but thanks to this kind of group of core people in our company, we were able to do it. And I think, before I kind of get into the details of it, I think it's important to acknowledge that none of this was easy and none of it was a whole lot of fun. But I think at the other end, there is silver linings in the challenges that we've all gone through in the last few months. And mostly that's kind of what I want to share with you, is what I think some of those silver linings are.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess a few things before you jump in from my side.
Yeah.
One is, what I've always admired about you guys is the iterative nature of the way in which you work through, things. You try things, you build on them. It's not just about, hey, we're going to do this, that's what we're doing. You're always building and trying, and you can see it from the outside as somebody who deals with a number of people at a bar, restaurant, hotel level. I know Kaplan pretty well. Share a lot of kind of thought processes maybe that are similar, even though I'm in a different line. And then I guess the other thing is, with regard to the statement on March on, like, totally feel that. Really interesting. We're sitting here on a live stream on this Tiki platform that we thought we'd never do anything but a series of industry focused handful of days together, because that's what it was about. So there is an element of, it's a creativity on a different level. It's not creativity in the common sense. It's not particularly enjoyable most of the way, but I think there's a lot of value to be had out of it if you can approach it the right way. So I'm definitely excited to hear how you guys were thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. I mean, the ability to be nimble in any business or line of work is super important, but boy, have we learned that lesson in the last few months, right? Like, every time you think what's about to happen,
right.
It really, changes. And you're right, like, we definitely pride ourselves on being nimble and iterative, which is to say, that idea I mentioned of Death & Co. that was so appealing to me in those early days, that energy that was almost unexplainable. It was ephemeral energy in the air. To me, always spoke to that place not being the four walls, that there was something outside of there, or there was something about that could be expressed in different places. And that was really the excited energy I felt as we were, having Denver open. And it's a vastly different space. If anyone doesn't know it, Google it. It has lots of windows and it's huge, versus New York's tiny little dark bar. And LA is something else entirely on its own, but that there's continuity that threads between all of them. That's really important to us.
Cool.
And I think kind of at the core of that is something Dave and I were talking about this not long ago, and it's really, community. And we, that word, I feel like it's tossed around so much, that community is our most important thing. But, I think we've defined it in a way that really applies to our work, which is, our community is first and foremost our team. And we've really pivoted, or not pivoted, we've leaned in hard to that in trying to build a positive culture and a team that really connects more than just the job duties that they have. And from that team, our community then spreads to our guests. And then from there to our neighborhood and our city, and then, to our industry beyond that on kind of a global level. And so, when March 15th hit, and Dave said this to me, and I found it like really powerful. It was like, we of course were having a lot of reflective conversations in those early days, trying to understand like how we were feeling about all of it and how we were going to find our way through. And, he said, it's really hard for us to find that focus when the many layers of that we don't have an actual day-to-day connection to anymore. Our staff is gone, our guests aren't there. And, we are physically cut off from our cities, and our industry, we barely can kind of like grasp. And so, we took that kind of thought process and that understanding of the things that are most important to us, which is, as we define it, as our community and those kind of layers and those gradations. And we took a moment in this kind of crisis and turned inward. So, for us, there were kind of three important points of turning inward as a company and as individuals, which was, first trying to maintain that connection to those various levels of people, providing support and resources, and then transparency. And so, maintaining the connection is really challenging when you don't have a day-to-day, like you're not physically operating these places and you can't actually talk to your staff. But, I will sing the praises of it forever, but I'm very, very happy that a few years ago, we started instituting Slack within our entire company. And it became, by a regimented process, the only way in which the staff communicated, both about work stuff as well as a lot of, allowed areas for personal kind of engagement and like for the community aspect of our team to express itself. And that was an incredibly powerful platform for us to maintain connection. Because I firmly believe that those of us operators out there that are able to maintain a connection to their team and to keep some of the culture that was built up before, and for us that felt like a pretty solid one, you're able to do that, then you're going to be so much stronger at the other end of this. Just think of the hours and hours and hours that you've put into training people and building the culture. And so to have that connection was really, really important to us. Maintaining, connection to our guests was a lot more challenging. We couldn't serve them alcohol. And for us, we did the analysis on, those early days of just to go without any sort of service. And one, we didn't feel personally very safe about asking our team to come in and expose themselves to contact with people in those early stages when a lot of us had no idea. The world didn't really know how this thing was spreading and what the realities of safety were. And it wasn't financially viable. And while we had a little bit of money in the bank, there was no runway there to really play with. And the whiplash effect was so significant for so many people I saw who were trying to get it going, and it being a great community relation, but it not being viable. So we instead, tried to leverage more of what has been successful for us in the past, and we're so lucky that we have a really strong, say, Instagram account. And so we started pivoting a little bit how we could connect with those guests through that, being a little bit more educational, providing more for people who are stuck at home, as well as our community too. And so you see it kind of like spreading from there. And then support and resources, within our Slack, we started instituting in an effort to maintain connection, a daily newsletter where one of the leaders of the company, myself, Dave, our director of ops, Mike, Shane, beverage director, Tyson, Bueller, our culinary director, Wes Hamilton, or Devin Tarby would, give an overview of where we're at tell them how we're doing. This part of the transparency piece of it. It's not only what we have been before and have been for a long time with our teams is open book. We share our numbers, tell them exactly what we're doing and where we think we need to go. But we kind of pivoted to be more open heart and sharing with people how we're doing and inviting them to, interact with us. But through that process also, trying to consolidate in each given city, there were very specific resources that people could tap, be it, the USBG funds, be it other opportunities to make cash that people weren't able to through initiatives like this, where people can send them Venmos, and also provide mental health services, and really, frankly, try to stretch every dollar that we had. We've been trying to get better benefits for our team for a long time, and we were through some very creative accounting, and not creative in a bad way, but creative in a really strategic way. Our admin, Marie, was able to find ways in which to extend health insurance for even some of the staff that were let go. So that was really helpful for us. Yeah. So that was really like crisis management, like trying to figure out what this thing was without any kind of understanding of really what the timeline looked like.
It's interesting you mentioned Slack. We've used it for some years, although honestly, we're kind of slacking on Slack right now.
Get it?
Yeah, good one, right? But yeah, I mean, it's a great tool to keep people connected, easier, honestly, than email, frankly. And I think it is like, how do you keep some of that connective tissue and normalcy within this when obviously we're not there, right? So it's, I think that answer is different for everybody, but it's definitely a part of having a vision and making it through this and out of it,
Yeah, it's funny that I've had this conversation. There's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's a helpful one. When you talk about opportunities to connect with people, and like say something like Slack, or assessing some other opportunity or system out there to try to maintain connection or to collaborate with people. And there's the kind of creative process of assessing it out and figuring it out and implementing it. Well, not implementing, that's the really hard part. I feel like it should be acknowledged that often finding creative solutions, be it, the expression of a cocktail or a business challenge, is kind of plucked out of the cloud, and you put the idea out there in the world, and there it is, and it exists. But the reality is that it takes an unbelievable amount of work to really make these things function and to really live and breathe for people. And I think that was one of the lessons we've learned, with something like Slack was, just making it just a part of the DNA of the business in order for it to work. And you could probably say that true of anything, like, for example, all of our SOPs and recipes are within an Evernote database that's shared by everyone, but that could be absolute utter chaos if it wasn't given structure and, guided the correct way.
Got it.
So, after that kind of initial crisis management and wrapping ourselves around it, it was starting to become clear to us anyway, and I'm sure for a lot of people, that this was going to be a little bit longer than we thought. While I had a lot of optimism for it ending quicker, it really, we decided to set ourselves up with a plan to be able to reopen whenever that was right and felt safe to us. And we definitely kind of put our heads together and said, is our ultimate goal to open the first moment we can? And one could argue that would be the correct business decision. Like the moment you can take revenue again, you should do so. But at the kind of core of our business is that connection piece to our staff, and really that the emphasis on our community being important and really assessing all decisions kind of through that lens. So it didn't feel right to us to just simply open right away. And so we decided we're going to, essentially we'll about 2-week buffer from when we can to when we will to see how things are going. And that's proven in retrospect to be pretty helpful for us because we've seen how others have reacted. We've been able to pivot. And while we're, we may be considered kind of an innovator in our field, I am very comfortable and very happy being the second one to the party, if not the third one. Like I like to see how other things happen, let somebody trailblaze and have issues, hopefully without health problems in this case, but to be able to kind of observe the environment around us was really helpful. And, we pivoted very quickly from we're wrapping our heads around how we're going to maintain this connection to our team. But now we need to find focus for ourselves. And for this kind of core group of people, we started asking ourselves some really hard questions. And one of them was, how do we want to come back? Even though this is challenging and financially almost ruinous, or if not completely ruinous, if we are able to come back, do we want to come back exactly the same way we were, or do we want to be better and different? And one of the first steps for us was, just finding a level of, maybe peace with uncertainty isn't the right way of saying it, but I guess acceptance of uncertainty. And, like I said a minute ago, the whiplash is exhausting. It is, like we were getting ready to reopen a couple of places, and then the government told us differently. And so, you just kind of pulled in a million different directions. And that can be maddening, but finding an ability to maybe distract, maybe to just hone in on something, and kind of the tangible outcome of our inward focus was a reopening playbook. And really what's underneath that, and the reopening playbook, for anyone who wants it, we're constantly updating it. It's available on our website, deafandcompany.com/COVID-19. And it's really our generalized plan of attack for reopening our venues. There's a lot of minutia for each one because they operate a little differently, but I'll get into that in a few minutes. But ultimately, the assembly of this playbook came about after hundreds of hours of collaboration between our team, led by our director of operations, Mike Shane, of really looking at what we do, our systems, how we operate, how we want to operate, and finding a way to articulate that into a new environment. And that was really all theory, like aside from watching how people were reopening in, say, Hong Kong or other parts of Asia, there really was nothing there in a domestic sense to really guide us. Tobin L's masterful work is a really incredible guide, but there was nothing really kind of speaking to our specific type of operation. So, that I think was one of those opportunities for us to kind of just, again, go inward and try to ask ourselves the hard questions of how we want to operate and how we want to be. And again, it kind of comes back to that transparency piece. The moment we started putting this together, we knew that we had to share it with everyone. And that seems magnanimous, but honestly, it wasn't. I just can't imagine doing anything else. It's not proprietary information. It's just our approach to it. And why, if that can help one person be slightly more safe, then it can be helpful to us.
I think it's awesome you guys are sharing it. We just put that link up on Facebook now, if anybody wants it. I think that the 2-week thing is interesting. I certainly saw from a third party perspective, people jumping in being like, well, I got to do it. To your point, got to get the revenue, right? Which is true. It's a burning need when you're in the middle of something like this, right? But I think it's interesting to hold back, wait and see, effectively saving money in theory, potentially, if you jump in, you go get started, and then it doesn't go the way you thought, or something else comes up, or you need to totally pivot on the pivot, right? So that's it's an interesting way to look at it, smart way to look at it.
And I think it comes back to preparedness and the importance of it. If we were to simply have opened our doors as quickly as possible, we would have bled money. And the amount of times I've rebuilt our business models in the last 6 months is staggering. There was a period there where we were rebuilding projections almost every 2 weeks for all of our businesses. And that is insane, and it's not just simply updating numbers. It's creating a business plan with projected revenue out of the ether. We had no idea how people were going to react. We could fill every one of our X number of seats for 2 turns a night, knowing that we need a little bit of buffer on either side, which are the tangible, to reset properly and redo PPE and get everything set up for a safe environment. That's simple math. But what's not simple are cultural norms and the changes in customer attitude, because that world that we existed in before, where we understood very, very well how it all worked, that doesn't exist right now. And we need to kind of playing with numbers in order to try and find a path forward, and then stitching it all together and looking at the big picture between 3 bars and our consulting business, and seeing if it works, and seeing what needs to happen for it to work. And that really being a guiding light for us in prioritizing certain things. And to your point, it became, well, opening really quickly here as guests are just dipping back in, that's not going to get the revenue we need. So let's hold off. Let's do it safely. Let's do it when we're comfortable and ready to do so. It was really important to us. So another part of this was getting as loud as possible. Probably have seen, if anyone follows our Instagram, that we've been involved with the Independent Restaurant Coalition since it was formed, or shortly after it was formed, which was, I believe, March 18th. This group of restaurateurs across the country came together. I think the kind of group is about 100 people right now. And we're on, not daily, it was daily for a little bit, but a couple times a week coming together. And this group is amazing. I'm an incredibly small part of it. I mostly just try to amplify the work of these incredibly impressive, well-known chefs like Naomi Pomeroy, Chef Thomas Keller, Andrew Zimmer, and the list goes on and on. These are like powerhouses of our industry. And they've very successfully been able to achieve, through getting advocacy out there for revisions in the PPP, Payroll Protection Plan, which has been very helpful for our business, as well as advocating for what's called the Restaurants Act. And if anyone's listening, please, especially if you're in a state that has heavy Republican representation, please just go to saverestaurants.com, hit the take action button, and it will just fill in. It takes 2 seconds, fill in a little bit of information, and it'll send directly to your representatives and senators showing your support. And what this would do is, for small independent operators, provide money to make up the difference for what we've lost this year. And if anyone's paying attention to the news, if you go on Eater, you read your local newspaper, we're at the threshold right now where people just can't survive any longer, and they're closing. Places are permanently closing. So if anything anyone can do, please do so. A little bit of a tangent, but I'd be remiss not to vocalize it. But this is going to be vital.
For sure.
Yeah, important tangent. Yeah. We'll say it one more time before we're done. So, we're trying to also, through the IRC, through other things we're involved with, like I'm a part of the Tales of the Cocktail Education Committee, and being a part of pivoting the education platform this year to all live sessions, which are going to be happening at the end of September. Check it out online, all free, you can sign up. There's a lot of really cool education that we had a complete docket ready to go before the pandemic hit. And we had to completely redo it and bring in a whole new slate of education. So it's pretty cool. It doesn't all speak to COVID related things, but there is a lot of really helpful resources in there. So encourage you to check that out too. And then kind of back to our business, we've really doubled down on the engagement of our community. And knowing that we weren't able to bring a lot of staff back, even in the early days of reopening, really, honing our Instagram to be as educational as possible and engaging and spreading the word, and using things like AMAs, which are Ask Me Anythings on Instagram, as a way to bring in experts from around the world and the country, really, like legal advice from Hellbron Levy in New York, who are helping people navigate the situation, mental health professionals, other people that can provide kind of more wide-ranging help and assistance and guidance during this time. And then we've also really, as many business owners right now, we've sought revenue in every corner of the room that we could find. We've lifted every piece of furniture, dragged out every penny. And luckily we had a retail platform that was, fairly modest prior to this, but we were able to really, use that to get people to find revenue, and use some of the funds to divert to our staff GoFundMe, which was started shortly after the pandemic. I should have mentioned it earlier, but thanks to the generosity of our fans, our community at large, we were able, and a lot of brands, frankly, that they were able to donate. And I'm not sure if I can mention specifically, but so I won't. But brands that may be associated with what we're talking about today were extremely generous in giving us dollars to go to our staff. And we have this fund set up that's controlled by a committee of employees that handle any requests for emergency or any financial need. And we're, like I said, able to raise, I think, about $40,000. And that money's just sitting there right now. It's still mostly intact, but people have been able to utilize it. So that retail platform, we've started to get creative. And this is really the brainchild of Dave, as he is our kind of retail guru and marketing guru. But we launched some things called Death & Co experiences, which just aren't, buying a shaker tin or a book or a sweatshirt, a hoodie, of finding a way to kind of front load kind of futures in Death & Co. And, some of them from the top left, it's like Goodbye 2020, which is, could pre-buy tickets for our New Year's Eve celebration. These launched a long time ago. I'm really hoping this can happen. To having, say, priority reservations, which traditionally we don't take reservations. So the ability to, kind of be able to know that you can get those when we're back open was a really easy thing for us that really cost us nothing, but was able to engage people and allow them to show support on through to cocktail classes, or we'll set up your design cocktails for your wedding, or a getaway to the Ramble, or one of the ones I'm really excited about is a custom bar cart where I get to work with somebody on setting them up with the most badass bar cart for their home use. And, something like that, I didn't think anyone was going to purchase, but we recently, last week, a woman purchased it as a wedding gift for her fiance. So
super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Talk about the best fiance ever. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to work with her and set it up with Delicious Plantation and other fine things from Maison Ferrand.
Well
yeah. And then, within the retail sphere, I've just been shocked at, we have these limited release Tiki mugs that we have this great relationship with a Tiki mug maker in Southern California. And we've done some work with them in the past, but over COVID, we've been able to work with them on these special limited releases.
Oh, I need that.
Yeah. And we've done 3 or 4 of them over COVID, and the reaction has been amazing. I mean, these things sell out so quick. It's just been incredibly helpful, and I'm so thankful for the community and for our fans that are purchasing these, because they've really, we stand behind the integrity of their production. They're really great mugs, but they're also really helpful for us as a business as we're trying to navigate, not making money.
Bug front, if you want to give us a heads up when you guys release the next one, I'm sure our Tiki by the Sea community would love to know about it. Not that you're selling them anyway, but happy to spread the word on that. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, we certainly will. Other creative things to find, any revenue, we were able to set up a residency at Soundview out in Greenport on North Fork, Long Island. Can't speak English. And, this is a hotel group that we've worked with a lot in the past. Glorietta, a restaurant in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where Dave lives. They have a great hotel there called the Anvil, and we set up their beverage program, and we've worked really well. And we saw some, mutual benefit here. They were completely revamping the hotel to be very COVID friendly in that, you can basically, they have these beautiful rooms right on the water, and you can have your escape without any proximity to people. It's closed to the public. It's just guests of the hotel able to interact with the F&B. And we felt really good about how they were approaching it. And so we did a collaboration with them to help, generate a little bit of revenue. And then the most random thing, a couple of our investors called me one day when Dave was out for maternity, and they're like, "Hey, we help launch TV shows. You guys want to do a collaboration on some cocktails around the launch of this season of The Alienist?" And we're like, "Hell yes," because that's all we say right now is yes, we will do anything. I'll even talk to you, Pete. And I wouldn't have done that before.
There you go. I think it's paternity, by the way, not maternity. Although
paternity. You're right. You're right.
You.
Paternity. Whoops. Touche. And that's all the stuff that was kind of like just there before we were able to actually reopen. In late June, we made the decision to get the doors open, and we had this playbook, this plan of attack, but it's been amazing to see the kind of intricacies of each operation. And we started first by operating indoors. For those not acclimated, our property in Denver is quite large. It's a very grand hotel lobby, and we were able to set up a decent amount of seats with very cautious social distancing. And that felt really good. And the reaction from our guests was overwhelmingly positive. Statements like, "This is the safest we felt anywhere in Denver," and yada, yada, yada. And we're like, okay, cool. We're doing something right here. But that brought up some really creative challenges. And it was from experience on down to product. On an experience side, Definico is known for these kind of big volumetric cocktail menus, expansive, a lot of esoteric ingredients, advanced preparations, cocktails on draft and use of clarification, yada, yada, yada. But we didn't really have any money to spend. So how are we going to do that? And it's not safe to give somebody a beautiful leather-bound book to leaf through. And so we had to kind of change that. And, moving from something that was so tactile before, like our books are much like our books you can buy, from Amazon. They're kind of physical objects, and we want people to engage them. But absent that tactile relationship with our offerings, how could we do that? And we kind of pivoted to focus on what that like online experience would be like. So using something like a QR code is really not the most gracious thing in the world, but everyone's doing it. So we're all kind of getting used to it. But we worked with our designers that we've worked with for a very long time to try and create menus that looked beautiful, that represented kind of the experience that was really important to us, but we're also nimble enough. And that's part of the product side of things that I think has been both a challenge and an opportunity for us. Prior to shutdown, we had broad expectations for what we needed to spend, what our cost of goods were. They weren't broad; they were very specific. But in a reopening environment, we had to tighten the bootstraps. We had to look at everything that we're doing and see how can we really make sure this is the most efficient operation possible. And it sucks, but part of that was essentially looking at the inventory we had and rebuilding our menus using existing cocktails. So they were vetted, they had gone through our development process, we stood behind these drinks, but building menus almost kind of on a weekly basis, depending on what we had in stock and using what we had. And that has been really a great thing so far for us in managing our costs while being able to still express creativity. And the end result of that limitation has been an offering that continues to change. And anecdotally, it seems to be something that our guests are enjoying too, that we not only, we have that high level of cocktail, the attention to detail, but that we are able to kind of create new reasons to come back more frequently. And that too is, express itself in our to-go offerings where we've, let's keep going. There we go. Where we decided, if we're going to do to go, it needs to extend our hospitality home. And the first way, just like a beautiful garnish on a drink, you consume the thing with your eyes first, right? And so we knew we had to have a beautiful package, but we knew we also had to have something to sell that was worth it for both us and our guests. And we really have looked at more larger servings between 375 ml bottles to 750s, and finding kind of a range of offerings on a weekly basis that tend to change based upon what we have and what we're able to put together, so that we can hopefully gain momentum with our guests to have them come back as much as possible.
Yeah, those look great. What are those right there?
I have no idea what specific drinks those are.
No,
I'm guessing it's
size. The
size. Oh, those are the 375 and 750.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Cool.
And there are a lot of, for those out there kind of trying to navigate these waters, there are a lot of wholesale suppliers of bottles that you can find, like bottlesetc.com, that are great resources. A lot of them are stretched thin right now, as you can imagine, as they're having to deal with a lot more volume than they're used to. But you can still find great stuff that's not very expensive. I have friends here in Portland, Maine that own Hunt and Alpine Club, and they've decided to go essentially like 2 servings, and they have these cute little plastic bottles, and it's fantastic. And we decided, okay, we want it to be like this glass bottle and have heft to it. And ours are quite a bit more expensive. So, there's many different directions you can go with this, given the kind of tools out there. So we got reopened in Denver, and we were preparing to reopen in Los Angeles and then reopen in New York. And that's when both LA and New York shut us down, shut everyone down from any indoor. Simultaneously, we had a COVID case on our staff in Denver. And following our playbook and our approach to it, it was scary. I'm not going to lie. Like the theory of, just like it's scary building those projections and those business models and kind of not knowing what the reality is, it was really scary having the theory of our plan and then having to put it into action. And that involved, very focused contact tracing, of getting everyone who had any risk of exposure tested as quickly as possible. And luckily, Denver had rapid testing available. So we were able to go through that very, very quickly. And, at the end of it, it was really difficult. Going through the whiplash of reopening, and then closing again it was incredibly hard. The machine of restaurants and bars, as we all felt when we had to close down in March, when you're not allowed to take revenue, the machine doesn't stop. It's like a locomotive, right? There's a lot of built up momentum and you cannot just stop it in its tracks. So part of our reopening planning was finding ways in which we could stop the machine as quickly as possible. And we were able to do it fairly well, but it was definitely really challenging. And this isn't quite public yet. We're about to make an announcement, or it might have happened while we've been talking, but we've actually had to close down again for a second time in Denver, not because somebody on our staff was a positive case, but somebody in the hotel we're at. So we've been going through all the process, and luckily, again, our systems are proving really strong. We have a really strong relationship with our Department of Health in Denver, and they're really helpful to us and giving us the feedback we need. So it's really challenging.
How long are those closures?
This one will be significantly shorter. That first one was 2 weeks. And the second one, we're hoping to be open in the next couple of days, based upon, again, we return to, do we feel safe to do this? And test results tell us if we're safe. And that's what we rely on as a milestone before we commit to the next step. So it's definitely a challenge, but one that we're dealing with. And I think that really starts bringing up an important thing to recognize, is that many of us got into this business because despite the long hours, sometimes the shitty pay, despite the never-ending challenges, the late nights, the stress that can come with all of it, the exposure to alcohol and dangerous situations, we do so because we're passionate about it, and that at the end of the day, there's something fun about making people smile or happy or otherwise improving their lives through our hospitality and our products. And when you operate in this current environment, it's really hard to have fun. And it's really hard to have that joy. And that is the morale issue, I think, is massive. And it's really challenging for us. We try to, have positivity, but it's a drain and a stress on everyone because the joy isn't there as much as it used to be. And I hope that is helpful for people out there in recognizing, because it's okay, it's not going to magically get better. And it sucks that we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because it's not like we can just go do something else right now. The world is still mostly shut down in a lot of ways. So that's been really important for us to recognize, and then try to find ways again to kind of reconnect with our staff to find moments of joy when we can, and celebrate them above all else. So after reclosing, we reopened in Denver outdoor only, and completely changed our service model. Where before we were trying to, I think succeeded in creating a different Death & Co experience inside. We were still engaging with our guests. We were still guiding them through an experience, though from a distance. We're still able to give them all the flourish that we had before, just a different version of it. Now we decided we're going to do a completely different thing. We want the product to be great. We want people to feel safe. And so we decided we felt most safe just operating outdoors. And we installed, if you see kind of over to the left there, we saw the window in the side of the building. We took over the street in front of the building and put in big tents, and we corralled it so that guests now come, they meet the host, they are directed to a table and told to order at the window. We still deliver everything with real glassware, beautiful ice garnish, to the appropriate level, and of course food. But it is now quite different than it used to be. And in New York, similarly, we were able to open up outdoors, take over a couple of parking spaces in front of our building. And the regulations are such there that you really can't take over more than the width of your building, which anyone who's been there, it's a tiny freaking building. So not a whole lot, but we were able to find ways in which to safely accommodate about 17 people at a time. And one of my favorite parts of it, which isn't really shown in this, but on the left side there, we have a little kind of stoop, and we were able to put a table on it with 2 bar stools, so that you have essentially like the equivalent of 2 bar seats, which when they did that, it just that's one of the things I miss the most. And every time I'm out at a restaurant outdoors, because that's personally the only way I feel safe right now, I turn to my husband and I'm like, I just miss bars. I just miss sitting at a bar, So that was a fun little innovation. And then LA is in the process of getting some outdoor going as well. So we're readying for that as well. So all of them, though, I think it's important to note that while we have that baseline of the playbook, that each one of them is approaching this a little differently. The New York environment you just saw is fully, it's full service. So it's not like Denver that I mentioned, that's more counter service model. This is full service. It's a small enough area. This is a way that we can have a couple of people working and be able to engage guests. And thus far, it's a crazy, Death & Co. New York is the little engine that could, and it has been doing really well. So we're now at this point where we have been able to navigate both opening, closing, whiplash of it, find ways through it, and really, spend our time trying to be as efficient as possible. But our eyes for the last many months have also been on what's on the other side of this thing. And a lot of that kind of inward reflection is for that period. So while it's terrible to say so, I think that there is opportunity for many people on the other side of it. A lot of us have lost, our life's work has been put in jeopardy, if not closed entirely. And there will be, I really strongly believe that there will be a resurgence on the other side of this, that there will be opportunity for people, because perhaps, hopefully, the equation that was maybe not sustainable before with crazy high rents in certain places, operating costs out of whack, perhaps we can have a little bit of a reset switch on that. So, I guess my kind of final piece of advice, and this is one of my favorite quotes from a woman named Angela Duckworth, who wrote a book called Grit, amongst other things, is, there's a lot of talent out there, but talent only counts so much. You really have to do the work. You have to dig in. You have to spend the time doing it. And I highly encourage those who haven't, that if this isn't the busiest time in your life, then it ought to be, because that will pay dividends on the other side of this tenfold.
Yeah. I mean, I'll echo that from my side. I mean, that's kind of how we're thinking about it. There's a lot of things we can't be doing, but there's many things we can be doing as an organization to set ourselves up for future success. One, secure at least the present as best as possible, but 2, really look at where can we take this and what can we learn from this experience that we can then use in the future as well. To your point, maybe do things a little bit better, maybe do things a little bit different, maybe explore some opportunities that we didn't have the time to do, right? In the normal operation of what we're doing,
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and you're going to be hardened by the battle of it all, which is terrible to say, but very much true. There's my skin is twice as thick as it used to be, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And that's all I got for you.
All right, I got a couple questions for you.
Shoot.
So talk a little bit about your first Tiki drink. We're doing a Tiki session here, so I know we're talking about the pandemic, but let's get back to drinks for a second. And what was the first drink, like tropical Tiki universe, that really spoke to you, and why?
I had the great fortune of working with Brian Miller at Death & Co. in those early years, and I would 100% consider him one of my mentors in the bar world. And Brian got very excited, as we all know, about Tiki, and applying the lessons of Tiki, which, multiple base spirits together, and applying that to the Death & Co. aesthetic. But then he really started pivoting just into Tiki. And my aha moments was a Mai Tai he made just before he opened, an unfortunately gone restaurant now called Elitaria. And he made this beautiful Mai Tai that was so fucking good. I still salivate thinking about it. And it was rich, luscious, but also not sweet. It blew my mind how refreshing it was, and so complex. And as I recall, it was agricole rum and Jamaican rum, and then the typical, and it was equal measures of each, but it was something about the marriage of those two rums together that was kind of a click moment for me. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting to see how these two elements come together for something greater than the sum of their parts.
Right on. Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned a number of things, but if there's something for people to take away about how they could support you guys specifically, what are the one or two ways that you would really think of as the best ways for them to do that?
I would love, we still have it up on our website for the GoFundMe for the staff. Any contribution to that would be amazing. First and foremost, a safety net for them. In addition to that, supporting our retail market, which if you go to our website, there's a little button that says store. Elements of that would be really, really helpful. And in fact, we're working with a new creative director now who we have a whole new line of apparel coming out that I'm really, really excited about. Those would be the two main ways. And of course, if you live in any of the cities where we're operating, we would absolutely love your support in the doors, and in whatever level you're comfortable with, to go on through to coming to visit us. Right on.
Cool. Let's make a drink. I think we all need a drink after that discussion.
Yeah.
Very good. But yeah, so why don't you talk about the inspiration from this one, ingredient bases and what have you?
Oh, for sure. So this was originally a drink from a place a nightclub we opened in LA called Honeycut. Yep, good old Honeycut. It was the weird bar that could, and it did for a little bit. It was fun. But this was it was a high volume bar, and we had to build things quickly, but we also wanted to provide drinks that were low in alcohol content while still being complex. Nightclubs tend to get out of control quite quickly, and having drinks like this that were both refreshing and complex, and wouldn't kind of kick you on your butt, was really important to us. And the inclusion of powerful ingredients like a small teaspoon of cachaça, just to bring like some kind of funk and complexity, was a kind of early moment of realizing the power of ingredients like that. And at that point, I don't think we had Avwa, did we, Pete? It's too early.
I like how I left this in, by the way. That's pretty.
I know. You didn't copy edit my little note to you. Nice work.
Yeah. Hey, can't be perfect every time.
Yep. So everyone knows he did not send me a bottle of Avwa cachaça, but I had an old bottle, and this is so old it still says Brazilian rum. Do you know this brand?
Oh wow, yeah, I do know that brand. Yeah. That's fun.
It got cracked open for the first time. So this is just a spritz, as I usually like to do, just build them in the glass. So a little teaspoon of cachaça. We've got a dash of Angostura bitters. My dasher, for some reason, 2 feels more equivalent. Some of them are 3. You never know. Let's see what else is in this, because I don't make drinks very often. Just kidding. That's not true. Half ounce of fresh lime juice. 3/4 ounce of pineapple gum syrup. You can honestly it's essentially equal measures of fresh pineapple juice and sugar with a little bit of gum arabic. But if you just blend the pineapple and sugar and let it sit for a little bit, that'll totally work. The gum will have a little bit more body to it. And to make it, you need an immersion circulator. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. ounce and a half of Lillet Rosé, which is a nice light fortified wine, and an ounce of Plantation 3-Star. So this is a rad rum, blend of 3 different rums, 3 different islands rums, and made by the wonderful people at Maison Ferrand, which have been massive supporters of our community before and during and ongoing, and are just wonderful people altogether. And this rum, I think what I love most about it is it's delicious, first and foremost. Second, made by great people who I love spending time with. And third, is incredibly affordable. You know, I don't know what the prices are in every one state, but this stuff will not set you back too much and really packs a good punch. So I love it. It's what I pull for when I make daiquiris at home, which this summer was frequently. Because I'm lazy during this cocktail.
Sponsoring this fun session.
Yes, thank you, Plantation. We love you.
Also, this feels like the bar of the future right here. Like you sitting at a table,
yeah,
you know, just kind of doing this. This is bartending.
I'm pretty lazy. And you know, you've probably done a lot of these cocktail demos where people are like shaking on camera. You never look great. You kind of look like a jackass all the time. So I'm definitely trying to avoid that right now. And again, I'm lazy.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of emails to answer after this, so I can't, you know, drink a ton.
Well, it's
a little bit of soda water. Spritz wouldn't be a spritz without some bubbles. Quick little fold. And I called for in the recipe mint, but it seems I could use just a little bit more temperature change. It seems that my local little market doesn't have any mint because they are so hyper local. So I grabbed some basil, which honestly, any nice aromatic leafy herb is perfect for this drink. Kind of just creates a little bit more complexity on the nose. And there you have it.
Wow.
Pins and needles.
That looks fantastic right now. Really good end of summer drink.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to make sure you get a bottle of mine.
Absolutely.
I don't think you can find that brand in the US, so it's impressive you have that.
Yeah, I don't know where this came from. I think it was like Dave's at one point, or I don't know. Who knows? Those are fuzzy nights in Brooklyn many years ago.
So if anybody wants to make this along with us, we hope you are. Please feel free to post this up. Tag #Tiki by the Sea at Tiki by the CNJ. We love to see those. Nice, simple beverage, which is great. Not always the case for you guys, but super fun. But I do really commend you guys for, you know, the way you've done the books. Really breaks it down. It gives a lot of context for people. It's not just here's a spec, here's an ingredient, go for it. You know, that kind of vibe. So, you know, keep doing that. I think it's great and much appreciated.
Well, thanks. I'm another thing that we're working on now is another book, and this one definitely very targeted at empowering people at home to interpret recipes and be able to make them, even if they don't have one esoteric ingredient. So we're very excited about that.
That's good. Guillaume and I will make sure you have bottles for that one this time.
Excellent.
He gives a thumbs up in the background. The green room, if you will. All right. Very cool. Thank you much, sir.
Thank you.
We're going to go to 5 questions. Oh, wait, hold up. Let's put your info up. If anybody wants to stay in touch, a.day at Gin and Luck. A reminder on the tip jar at Alexander-Paul-Day. If you guys want to contribute, these are all the Death & Co. handles. I'm sure you can easily find them. As you mentioned, you guys do a great job on that. Brittany is mentioning hazy nights in Brooklyn may have happened more than once.
She was my roommate after all.
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, there was a period when I had a room in an apartment with Brittany and Jillian, as well as Brandon, who owns Attaboy in Nashville. And I was mostly living in LA, but would be with them quite a bit. We were all kind of adults at that period. Sort of.
Very good. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. All right, let's move on. We're going to put you to the side for one moment. We're going to bring in Katie Best. Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
What's going on over there? Thanks for sticking with us.
Oh, nothing. Just taking notes and, you know.
Taking notes. There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. Very informative. All right. You ready for 5 questions?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. Favorite Tiki by the Sea memory?
Mind erasers by the pool.
Oh, man. Yeah, we heard that one before, I think. That seems to be coming up a couple times here.
It was fun.
I don't think I was there for that. Sounds like
I was late. That was pretty late.
That's a little late night jam. If you come to Tiki as a volunteer, which you only get to do as an alumni, then I reward you for your hard work in the form of mind erasers. No big deal.
No big deal. Very good. Yeah.
To stay up late, you need that little caffeine boost.
Right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Describe Tom Nevengloski in 1 word.
Awesome. I was like, I just immediately was like, dinner like 14 times, I think. That's awesome.
Yeah, fair. All right. I like that. Favorite meal in Wildwood?
Probably the seafood boil. That's always really fun. That's like such a good like communal thing. But there was a crab cake that was really good that I
crab cake.
Crab cake hotline.
Yeah, crab cake hotline. Yeah.
Haven't had one this year. Another thing the pandemic has ruined. There's literally a business called Crab Cake Hotline. That is legit the name of the business, which you got to respect. It's better than any I've had anywhere else.
Yeah, I think I agree. Also, I think about those sandwiches. As soon as I started thinking about this question, I was like, oh man, I miss unlimited Jersey subs. So all of the food, I guess, is top.
Yeah.
Primo Hokies is great. Like the food in Wildwood is great.
Yeah.
It's really good. Wouldn't call it gourmet, but would call it great.
I mean, fair.
Yeah.
All right. Weirdest thing you saw in Wildwood? Weirdest.
Don't ask, don't tell. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens late at night. I saw a couple of things. I don't know. I feel like as a bartender, it goes against my like deepest code to tell anything.
That's true.
I'm like, I didn't see them. I don't know what.
You don't need to use names on this.
Yeah. I mean, there's always some funny, like, late night romancing happening that you're like, didn't expect, kind of out of left field.
Yeah.
There was someone missed a taxi. That was kind of fun and sad when all of her friends were drunk and getting in the car and she was chasing
didn't make it. Didn't
yeah.
Make it.
Well, and they were just all like, no one noticed. It was bad.
Good friends.
That was like probably one of my top late night.
Back to the romance. It is funny when you see it, like, you know, everybody's depleted getting on the bus on the way back, and there's like certain people cuddling, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and sometimes they've been at these things before, and you're like, was this a pre-existing, or did this happen last night?
Hilarious. All right. Tell us about what's going on in Richmond right now.
We're persevering. We've been lucky. I think people took it kind of seriously out of the gate here. Maybe not in the surrounding counties, but in Richmond proper. And we've stayed open the whole time pretty much with limited, like doing takeout and stuff. The state's been really, overall pretty accommodating. We're doing to-go cocktails. So I think we're all, it was really nice to hear a lot of what Alex said, because it's a lot of what we've done. And it's like innovating and staying positive. And it's like the most work I've ever done, but like also sometimes the least hours. Like we're only open sometimes for 3 or 4 hours a night, and it's very interesting. But yeah, we're all just kind of hanging in there. We're doing outdoor dining. We've been canning cocktails, frozen drinks to go, just innovating and limiting, and yeah.
Very cool. Glad to hear it. Do you have anything else to add?
Go ahead.
Well, I think those canning cocktails are super cool.
Yeah, it's been really fun. We'd already been like doing carbonated cocktails and kegged cocktails and stuff like that, and this kind of felt like the next step. And I'm such a spritzer lover, so like doing like bubbly light cocktails has been so nice. And we're right next to a big park, which technically they're not supposed to take them over there, but I can't do anything about it.
Ah, wink, wink, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, here's a straw. Do what you want with it.
Right
Yeah.
on. Right on. Well, glad you're fighting through it. I think it was interesting to have you guys both on the same session. So just a heads up, next week we have Mark Farrell, founder of 10 to 1 Rum. Great brand that literally kind of just launched in the midst of this almost effectively. So he's going to talk about his journey reacting to this as well, which I think will be really interesting. Thanks for joining us. One last plug on the Venmo. Let's get everybody back in here. Alex, Aaron, what's that? Guillaume, hey Guillaume. He's muted. It's all right. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Keep your head up. We'll continue to try and support as much as we can from our side. Let us know what we can do.
Awesome. Thank you all so
Thanks,
much.
y'all.
Great to see you.